I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, June the 1st, brought to you in part by the International Brangus Breeders Association. They would like to invite you to Go Brangus. Check out the advantages of Brangus genetics by visiting gobrangus.com. We're on shaky ground here, and not just because we have people acting like animals in our big cities and burning and looting and just basically rioting all over the place, but that's scary enough. But I'm talking about the cattle market here. We're on shaky ground as we've kind of been riding this artificial market here for a month or 6 weeks. And you know, it all started whenever the pandemic crisis come in, and then we saw you know, unprecedented gouging by your packers, just raising these prices. They were a little over $2 a pound on choice cutouts, and they took them all the way to $4.77 just in big hunks, and just enjoying that big profit while everybody else is suffering during the pandemic. But you know, that hurt everything. Well, we did see enough that we started getting word, and we saw a lot of big influential people start calling for an investigation. It went all the way to your Secretary of Agriculture and all the way up to our great President of the United States, Donald Trump. And so your packers started trying to show a good faith on there, and put the best foot forward and make it look like they weren't doing as bad as what they were. So they kind of decided upon $1.20 for fats. And we've been on that for over a month now. At $1.20, it's well above what fundamentals really righteously call for market there. They're basically offering it up there and buying small numbers at it. But the last week, or the first part of this last week and most of the previous week to that, they bought most of them at $1.20. It started out they were just buying a few at $1.20 to make it look good on the market report. But now we're starting to see pullback from that, because the box beef cutout values have fallen back. They still would be at what would have been all-time record highs before this latest pandemic, but they fell back. They tried to hold them at $4 a pound. They haven't done that. We're going to be falling south of $3.50 a pound, and as they get closer to getting a 2 in the front number of those choice cuts, they're no longer going to feel like that they need to show good faith in this market and give out these friendly bids here. They're going to want to back those cattle up a little bit. The formulas on their formula partners, they're not going to be coming back as expensive as these box beef cutout values back off a little bit, and they quit making the huge profits. They'll just be making a normal type profit, which is plenty good for anybody in any business. But when they start backing off that, we're going to lose that $1.20 likely this week. That's what's been holding our feeder cattle up, and likely our calf market too. Our calf market struggled the most during this pandemic. For the first week or two, we saw markets pull back really hard, especially on the board, but nobody was selling anything, so it didn't really hurt anything that bad. But then the feeder cattle came back, the fat cattle came back, the calves, they rebounded, but probably never saw their full potential. But so we've got some shaky ground here, and as I mentioned last week, you might want to dally up on a hedge or do something to protect yourself, because these are pretty tough times here. And if you look down, you know, eventually it's going to be supply and demand stupid, and that's like everything else, but it's basically going to be the supply, and we've got way too many supplies. We've seen some reports come out and say, well, maybe we don't have that many cattle backed up as we thought we did. Well, our year-to-date slaughter is down 937,000, and early in the year, before we got to the pandemic, we were running ahead of schedule. So, you know, I don't know how we're going to justify that. Yeah, maybe we didn't have the placements during this pandemic, so there's not as many cattle there. But those cattle are still alive, you know, that maybe haven't been put on feed yet. They're getting big, turned out somewhere. But we've got a lot of heavy cattle, guys. and most of them are sitting in these corporate lots that had the formula deal that the packers aren't following through on. But there's a lot of cattle out there. Let's talk about what else we saw last week. As we came into last week, we had that neutral cattle on feed, which was really encouraging because the numbers were so out of whack. It's just surprising that your analysts were able to get that close to them, and we got to give them kudos for doing that because it kind of kept things from going out of whack there. But we saw the bailout sign up start out for the coronavirus food assistance program. So cattle people are going to be getting money, most of them for the first time ever from the government on a bailout type system. Some guys were excited about what they were going to get. Some guys were disappointed if you didn't sell any cattle the first quarter of this year or so, then you're only going to get 33 bucks a head. Well, if you own a $60,000 feedlot, that's still pretty darn good. But those big corporate outfits, they're going to be capping them at $750,000, and most of them will reach that very easily because it's going to hit two drags of cattle. I mean, the cattle that they had coming in, the cattle that they moved on out, and so they get a couple different runs of cattle there, and it's going to be easy for them to get cattle that were actually marketed during that period from January 15th up to March 15th and then on to April 15th. But so individuals going to be 250,000. A lot of people will be capped at that, and it still won't save them. But as I've been saying the last week or two, we'll be honest with ourselves. So far, the markets haven't really been that bad. I mean, we saw the knee-jerk reaction right as soon as they started closing the restaurants, and we saw that we weren't going to be able to keep our packing houses open. But as I said earlier, your packers have kind of put up this artificial market, and it hasn't really been that bad. But it sure has the potential to get that way now, guys. We knew as we came into this year, before we ever heard of coronavirus, that we had a lot of market-ready cattle to work through in the summer months. Well, here we are in the summer months now, and we've got those cattle, plus we got a lot of cattle that are backed up. You know, most people figure there's 1 million or more, and like I said, we've had some reports coming out and said there'd be half that. I'm not sure where all those cattle went. They didn't just vanish into thin air. I still think we got about 1 million head of cattle to back up that we've got to work through, and we've got to get our slaughter levels back up to normal, up to 630, 640 before we ever start gaining any ground. We did pretty well last week, even though it was a holiday week, and we were down on Monday there for Memorial Day, still slaughtered 524,000. If we had a regular Monday there, that would have got us up there in the normal range. So hopefully this week we'll see that. So that's encouraging there. But I want to talk to you guys about something we've been doing here the last few months, and I'm hoping you guys are kind of paying attention to it. But the main thing that I hope to do here with these feeder flash videos is support price discovery and competitive auction markets. And so Zactran has been sponsoring our market of the month the last couple of months, and due to the coronavirus and the shutdown and everything, some of the things that are coming their way from Zactran have not made it yet because we weren't able to get the signs made and things like that. But Zactran is a partnership here with Feeder Flash. They're a big sponsor. They wanted to sponsor something that was tied to competitive markets, and so they've been sponsoring the market of the month. It's an auction market, sale barn market that during the month has just showed that they're really all about price discovery. They've got competitive bidding there at their sale. They're selling strings of cattle. They're helping, or the producers in their area, and in this one's case, outside their area. But they're going to be getting some free Zactran swag for their employees. They're going to get a nice metal sign that recognizes that they were Market of the Month from Feeder Flash, sponsored by Zactran. And this month, Market of the Month is Stockman's Livestock Market, Yankton, South Dakota. Greg Ryken, auctioneer and owner there. I tell you what, I've gotten at least a texting relationship with him. I haven't shaken his hand yet, but that'll come. But I tell you what, they are really, really doing a good job there. It hasn't been that long ago that they didn't have the viable market that they do. But man, have they really got that thing firing on all cylinders. And I'm recognizing them mostly for their fed cattle auction. I would say it's the strongest fed cattle auction in all of the Midwest. And on May the 19th, the sale that they had there, they really, set the bar high. About 3,500 head of good finished fats there when people were needing to move some cattle, and they're continuing to need that. But they had fed cattle shipped in there from 8 different states, including the Texas Panhandle. And people in this country, and I'm living right here in the middle of the Texas Panhandle, they just can't even believe how that works, how you could load up 3 loads of finished fat cattle that are on the heavy side. You can't get them moved. You need those empty pens because you run out of wheat on your graze out, and you need to get some cattle moving through the system and truck them that far, over 750 miles, to a market and just hope to get anything out of there. They got more probably than most people would have figured they'd have got. They got all of what would have been offered in the country, but they couldn't get the cattle moved. They couldn't get them scheduled. They couldn't get them gone. So this got those cattle gone, got them moved up to part of the country where we've got more competition on a live negotiated basis, which is what that I'm pushing for. And they got up in there, and I heard here tell that the cattle only shrink 4% going all the way up there. And that's what your spoiled packers down in the Southern Plains are used to getting on a 50-mile haul or 100-mile haul. So I want to just recognize Stockman's Livestock, Yankton, South Dakota. They got a hell of a feeder cattle auction on Wednesday, their fed cattle auction on Tuesday, and then in season they have replacement cattle there later in the week. But congratulations to them, and you guys will be receiving some stuff from your sponsor Zactran there to recognize the fact. Now let's talk about your markets from last week. Your futures. Monday was a holiday, of course, but June live cattle futures. Tuesday was up 170, Wednesday up $1.40, Thursday up 67 cents, and Friday down 175. With June live cattle ending the week at 99.72. Here, August feeder cattle, Monday the holiday. Tuesday up the limit, $4.50. Wednesday up 72. Thursday up 147. Friday down 15 cents. With August feeder cattle ending the week at 135.35. Your August live cattle at 99.60. September feeder cattle 135.75. So right in there tight. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of difference, at least in your futures, as we move through the summer. But your fat cattle trade through Thursday of last week, 85,500 head. Pretty darn good movement, and then several more on Friday, so likely going to be near or over 100,000 head for the week there. And like I said, it's just funny here, we're all wanting more negotiated cash trade. We're able to hold this market, even if it might be artificial. Guys are able to hold that market up there, and your packers are buying more cattle out in the cash in the direct country, because the formulas that they've written with their formula partners are ending up costing them too much when they bring them back with all the add-ons. And your independent cattle feeders, and not everybody is privy to that. Nobody's privy to it except for the outfit that did it, and most people can't attain that. So we've got to have negotiated cash market to keep our smaller producers in. That's who it's for, and it's for your backgrounders and your cow-calf people more than anything. But we've got to keep our smaller producers together and not just your big giants. But your fat cattle market on live steers and heifers last week was 112 to 120 through Thursday there, and that was mostly steady to $2 lower on the front end. Your dressed steers and heifers bring from 174 to 190, mostly steady to $1 lower. But then Friday we had more trade. This is in addition to all that. About 2,000 head in Iowa, from 115 live and 178 to 190 dressed. Nebraska, about 6,900 head confirmed on Friday, 115 to 120 live and 178 to 190 dressed. Kansas, another 1,300, 115 to 119. Notice you couldn't get 120 in Kansas on Friday. And in Texas, just 800 head, but Texas tells the tale, and even though they don't sell very many cattle, they give the best price discovery, and we'd like to have a lot more of it. But 108 to 110 on the few live sales that we had on Friday in Texas. So that would have been a lot lower than where they were selling the first part of the week. Box beef cutout values, like I said, they're down hard. Your weighted average on last week's movement of box beef cutouts, choice, the weighted average was 374.04, down 31.36. Your selects, 348.59, down 37.73. Now your choice and select quotes were lower than that for the 1 day volume on Friday. Choice is at 363.34 and selects at 340.07. But you see how it is fading back, and it's fading back in hunks too, and will likely go down a whole lot more this week, and it's going to be hard to keep things together on the cattle side. But choice select spread on your weighted average on last week's movement was 25.45 with 662 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings, which is pretty stout. Your slaughter for last week, like I said, we had a holiday on Monday, so it's kind of hard to judge it, but 524,000. But you look back to the same week a year ago, 588,000, just off 64,000, and that is the best we've done since we've really got into this COVID-19 deal. But let's look at your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DB auction ended the week at 129.96, up $3.10. And your markets were better. We didn't have our high volume Monday sales. Most of them were closed. But we saw big gains through the middle of the week, and especially on Thursday, we saw huge gains. Your late week sales there as buyers come out in there pretty aggressively. Now, a sale that did not sell last week, but they've got a big run this week, about 4,000 head, Callaway Livestock Center, Kingdom City, Missouri. Talked to Jack Harrison. He said he has got a hell of a run of feeder cattle. They'll mostly all be black, probably some smoky black-nosed Charolais on a few of them, or maybe a few solid reds here and there. But I mean, he said the quality is outstanding. They are the right kind. Got a big run, lots of strings, lots and lots of square loads, and you can get your orders filled right there. And that sits right in a place there in central Missouri, just east of Columbia, Missouri, right on I-70 there. And you guys in Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois, wherever you're at, you can get those cattle. And of course, the Kansas and guys will be in there too. But look for that sale, and you can view and bid that sale. And it hasn't been that long that they've been able to do it, but you can view and bid that sale right on dvauction.com. Just look for Callaway Livestock Center out of Kingdom City, Missouri on dvauction.com. Click on there and go to work. Your cash feeders in your sales last week were, and Monday was mostly closed, but your feeders sold from $3 to $8 higher. Calves were not well tested, but we had some awful good sales there, and one of our best sales we saw was on Western Video Market there late in the week. I think it was on Thursday there, but man, did they have a sale there, especially on program cattle. They all sold really well, but got to show you some program cattle there from Shane Enterprises there out of Dixon, California. This is on Western Video Market's video sale. 120 head. These good black steers right here weighed 810 pounds. Of course, they're all black. They were NHTC, natural, gap 4, all the bells and whistles for immediate delivery. Likely delivered already, but I mean immediate delivery within just a few days. But 120 head of them weigh 810 pounds at $156, guys. You think you might want to look into some of those programs, NHTC, natural, and the Gap 4 deal helps a lot too. Let's stay in the same neighborhood. How about Turlock Livestock Auction Yard out there in California? 190 head 666-pound steers bring $143.75. Now let's get back here to civilization. South Coffeyville, Oklahoma. South Coffeyville stockyards there. A set of 3 colored cattle there, 77 head, weighs 6 1/4 at $160.35. Wow. But the best quote that I saw anywhere late in the week last week was at Torrington Livestock Markets in Torrington, Wyoming. 163 head, 906-pound steers bring $130. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.